With great power comes great box office returns. I can't help but think that there was a Sony executive somewhere who said those exact words in a meeting. So, first trailer dropped for Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, before I get into talking about this specifically, I will remind you, I really liked Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, a lot. Like, I don't... It's still close between that, Into the Spider-Verse, and Spider-Man 2 as to which is my favorite Spider-Man movie. It's really neck and neck between all three. I really enjoyed it. I loved the villain. I thought Tom Holland was great. I think the little shifts and changes that they made and the way that it was presented was all really well done. The arc that they did with Peter, especially with his relationship with Tony, was awesome. So yeah, I've been excited for this sequel to come out. Now, having seen the trailer, I'm still excited, but I'm also a little nervous, and like for reasons that I'm a little conflicted over. And I'll do my best to try and explain. So, first off, I actually basically saw two trailers because both the domestic and the international trailer dropped today and had slightly different stuff, mostly at the front end. It's a question of whether it opened with an airport luggage check, checking the contents of the bag joke, or hinting at how uncomfortable Peter is at seeing Aunt May kind of flirt with Happy Hogan joke. But by and large, all still touching on the same stuff. So we've got Peter now in Europe being contacted by Nick Fury. He's trying to get something started with MJ, who... God, she's got great lines. I really do enjoy Zendaya in this part, like, a lot. I love him going, "You're pretty," and she goes, "and therefore I have value to you." And he gets all self-conscious and just like, "I'm just messing with you, dude." I really enjoy the heck out of her. And Ned, being all excited and into things. And a few glimpses at some of the struggles and villainous sort of stuff going on, and I'll kind of come back to that. The first thing I want to talk about is like the whole sort of central concept of Spider-Man on a school trip to another country. And I have kind of mixed feelings about it. Because on the one hand, it feels like a very obvious, just page out of the sequel choices book. That doesn't exist. But I don't know. Like, well, let's take them to a different location. Just seems like a very bog standard way to do a sequel, and has been for a long time. It kind of has that feel to it. But at the same time, it's the kind of plot that would have been done to shake things up in like the old Spider-Man comics, like 60s and 70s, back when Stan Lee was actually writing this thing. It had that was the kind of thing they do to freshen it up a little bit every now and then. And I kind of and it's a smaller way to freshen it up, as opposed to going bigger stakes and like having him dealing with city or world-threatening stuff. And because one of the things I really liked about Homecoming was the emphasis on friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He was dealing with a smaller threat. He was in a smaller story, a story about on scale with what the classic Spider-Man stories were, because Spider-Man doesn't save the city. He stops bank robbers with gimmicks. It's one of the things I like about him. And I liked seeing that embraced in the last one, and I will admit that this concept kind of gels with that entire mentality and sort of that vibe of that era of Spider-Man comics that Homecoming pulled from. So, as much as I'm kind of like going, Europe trip feels like a little cheesy, a little obvious, I also can sort of think, yeah, but maybe it's kind of fitting anyway. So I would say that's not an automatic, like me going, ugh, but I'm skeptical, but can also kind of see how maybe that could work. Bringing in Nick Fury is an interesting choice. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. It obviously can't be the same kind of relationship that Peter had with Tony. I have to wonder if part of the reason for this is if they just didn't want to shell out for Robert Downey Jr. to come back and be in this again. And so they went with Sam Jackson instead. I don't know. That's speculation on my part. But it doesn't feel quite as organic. But yeah, again, it'll depend on the situation and how things actually pan out. The little moments of Tom Holland's so adorable as Peter. So lots of little moments, little looks, like nervous and everything. I really do like him in this part. But let's get to the bit of the new character that we see and some of the hints of the threat and whatnot. Now, depending on what you know about the comics, some of what I'm going to talk about in relation to the character who we see, who's called Mysterio, this might constitute spoilers for someone who does not know this character or know the comics very well at all. So if you don't have that background knowledge and you want to be surprised, you maybe need to check out of the video about now. But if you know anything about Mysterio at all, you'll get what I'm about to say here. But just wanted to give fair warning. So there's some interesting sort of little bits in this, because we've sort of got like these big monstery looking things. One looks like it's made out of dirt. It's kind of Sandman reminiscent. Another one's made out of water. It seems to have a Hydro Man thing going on. And then Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, shows up out of nowhere and starts battling them. Now, because of Mysterio's deal, which is that he deals in illusion and trickery and just creating fakeness, my presumption is that these threats are things that he set up so that he could then defeat and appear to be a hero. To what ultimate end, I don't know. That would be my guess, given his standard nature and sort of template of what he does. Now, here's the big thing about Mysterio as a villain in general. I'm not a huge Mysterio fan, and it's not because he's not a good character, but I feel that ultimately he really only works as a surprise villain, where you find out as a twist that he was behind stuff. Because if you know the guy's deal at all, i.e. that it's all fake, once you see him at the start of something, you know exactly what's going on. But his powers do lend him to being like the surprise reveal, because maybe the hero's dealing with something else, then all of a sudden, oh wait, it wasn't that, it was Mysterio all along. He's good for that because it fits his gimmick. But I wonder how straight they're going to play that. To be fair, they did some pretty good work messing around with the Tinkerer and the Vulture in the previous one and altering the characters to better fit the story and the themes that they were dealing with. So I'm going to have to kind of trust that they're going to do that with Mysterio, but I've kind of always been skeptical about Mysterio as a villain for the movies, because I don't know how you utilize him in a movie in a way that isn't wasting the time of the comics fans who already know his deal. Because you can only surprise the people who don't read the comics. And anyone who has, or even does a quick Wikipedia search, of going, oh, I wonder what this new villain in the Spider-Man movies like, is going to find out immediately, oh, Master of Illusion. So I'm hoping that they are aware enough to really keep an eye on that and to account for it, and that they've come up with a story and a plot and everything else that is not going to be undermined by that fact, and ideally will somehow play with it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I definitely saw plenty of the bits that I'm like, yo, man, I really did love all that. And, reminding me of that stuff from the first one. But I'm slightly skeptical of the overall concept of Spider-Man, in Europe. I'm actually fairly skeptical of this villain. And since we only got basically a glimpse of him here, that wasn't enough for for me to be like, oh well, he'll be fine, and maybe he will be fine. I just don't know yet. So those are my thoughts on the trailer drops for Spider-Man Far From Home. You seen it? What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. No idea why I rolled my R on that. A whole bunch of buttons and links down there, including one to the Patreon if you feel like supporting me that way. Every little bit does, in fact, help. But there's other stuff down there besides. There's my P.O. box and other links to other things. Press them. They take you places. Or, don't. If you don't feel like it, that is totally fine. Because at the end of the day, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.